Welcome back to the Everything Property Podcast. Today's guest is an industry veteran. He's been in the property industry for 25 plus years, from sales to auctions to owning and running the lifestyle group that he's grown out to 23 offices, 9,000 rentals and 1,300 sales a year along the mid-north coast of Australia. Property development, he's covered it all and boasts the portfolio and projects to match. If nothing else, he also comes highly regarded from previous guests like Oliver Lavers and Damien Cooley, two other guests on the Everything Property Podcast. David Gray, welcome to the Everything Property Podcast.
Beautiful, what a wrap. You could have held off the veteran, the 25 years, but
Yes.
Other than that, I'll take it.
Sorry, man. Sorry. Everyone that watching on YouTube will see that it's probably a lie. He still looks young. Mate, I'm really keen. Firstly, I want to dive into why, and I mean, a little bit of a industry secret or secret sauce for the podcasters out there that might be listening, but I always ask our previous guests if they have anyone they recommend that is a real standout. Damien Cooley, auctioneer on the block, you know, he recommended you. Same with Oliver Lavers, number one in the Ray White network, and then TRG. Both those guys recommended me to reach out. So I want to know what your relationship or what it's like with those guys. How do you know them, and why do you think they put your name forward?
Mate, both beautiful men. So I was a real estate agent, and I think I was a bit more of an entrepreneur than, an agent, and I always wanted more. And I watched Damo, and Damo really changed the way auctioneering was. Like, he brought something completely different to it, and I wanted to challenge myself, so I wanted to become an auctioneer, and he actually didn't give me a job. Anyway, but went down the line of Scalzi and learnt through that, and then lucky enough to win New South Wales Auction of the Year, and then he turned up and asked me to come work with him. So I worked with Cooley, and not just that, we've sort of gone through the industry and pushed each other and been mentors to each other in different ways. And then Ollie, I was his first boss in real estate.
You were in...
So it was Mint 360.
Mint 360?
Yeah. Just come back from Aric. It was so good. I mean, I had tears in my eyes watching him. And, lucky enough to, call him a dear friend. And, same thing. We've travelled overseas. I was on the phone to him, last night. And same thing, both big parts. And, as I said to him, watching at Aric, it was so good that, the old dog was watching the young pup, and then seeing him up at Aric, I took so much away from that. So I think the secret sauce is you always got to be learning and looking who you can learning from. And as much as I've had opportunities to maybe give back to those two guys, they're just two people that have given me a lot as well,
Wow, so it's basically a trade-off, right?
Always is.
Growing and so your real estate game, you started in sales, started in the eastern suburbs?
Yeah, I worked for two Greek brothers, the Purtis Boys, Arthur and Napoleon. So I was with them for 16 years. And I say it, they're still to your friends, but, they were my worst coaches and my best coaches. They were tough, man. They were tough.
All right, what are your main learnings from them?
Oh, trying to get money out of them. But I think, they taught me, and I think that's what Ollie and Damo would talk about, is that old school real estate. And sure, we've got a telemarketing culture now where we get on the phone and we just ring and hassle. But there is an art to a deal. And I know, you develop yourself. And then they taught me about property. And one of the biggest things they taught me, it's not what you make selling it or being in it, it's what you make with it. And I think that's what I learned off them. And not just them being Greek, but, all their ethnic friends, whether Lebanese or Greeks or Italians, those migrants that came here didn't earn much money. And, they got 30, 40, 50, 100 portfolios with not much income, So learning off them. So, the art of the deal, and then learning how to add value and make money out of real estate.
And then why the transition from real estate to auctioneer?
Just that challenge. And I think, as I said, that entrepreneurial, to do real estate, it's you got to follow that discipline. And I was always looking for something else. I was always looking for something, different. Real estate's my passion, but certainly now that I found Lifestyle Group, running the business, that's my core. That's where I need to be. But I think that journey through developing, auctioneering, all those different bits, that was me just being a little bit lost and trying to find my space in the world.
So dabbling out, just trying, seeing what comes back.
But auctioneering, that teaches, I think at the time I'd been selling real estate for about 10 years. I learnt more in that first 3 months. As an auctioneer, and a lot of people, the same thing, a lot of them think it's just the performance.
Yeah.
It's not. It's like, I've never met you, and I've got to work out, do I lower my voice? Do I stand above you? Do I get under you? Do I speed it up? Do I ignore? A lot of the times I'll be first, second, third, your hand's up, and the crowd's like, whoa, whoa, whoa. And I'm on purpose. I'm pretending like I haven't seen your bid. So I joke to my real estate team, the strategy in a deal. Like the thing I learned off Arthur and Apollo is like, how old are they? What job do they do? What have they missed out on? What do they do for work? Like we'd actually, profile those people. This is 15 years ago before AA or anything like that.
Yeah.
And when you can understand the strategy and understand the person, to me in real estate, you're unstoppable.
I mean, that goes for life too. That's pretty, that's interesting.
For sure.
Profiling back to that.
Yeah.
What I'm keen on, and real estate career, we'll get to the move to the North Coast and the empire that you've built up there. But when do you lean into and do development? Because obviously, real estate agent of 10 plus years in the East. I see agents. You see the agents driving around all the time. The luxury cars, the nice. I feel like it's weird because I feel like the agents that I see in the East. I don't hear too many of them doing developments and all that kind of stuff. A lot of them are showy, spend it on their wrist, spend on their suit, spend on their car. But like, when do you as that agent dive into development? Does it come earlier? Does it come later?
I say that one big thing at Aric. I mean, it's actually changed. I think agents are becoming more humble. But one of my questions is, stand up if you've you got more than a $20,000 watch, or stand up if you got more than 3 properties. And which would it be at Aric? Which is crazy. I think even back in the years ago, my 2, old bosses, like they only had 1 page in the paper. They didn't care. Where other brands were like the 10 or 20 pages. They always told me straight away, it's like what we do with it. And it was always about how to make money out of real estate. So I think I got that lesson really early on. And, like I was watching this thing with Mark Cuban the other day, and like he's a billionaire, but, he loves his jeans and his T-shirt. Where the other Shark Tank, Robert, wants to get dressy. So I think it also depends what you're into. I was always actually into the asset. I've actually always enjoyed real estate. And that challenge of how to auctioneer, it was the same challenge on how could I actually learn to develop. So I think everyone, different choices for different folk, but it was more the challenging and developing that really got me to go down.
But it's interesting because you're using it, I say it as well, property as the tool. You're using real estate as that tool, generate the funds, the money to then pull out of to go elsewhere.
Yeah, for sure.
Into development. Do you remember your first development deal?
Yeah, 100%.
Tell me.
Yeah, so, and this is where you watch the flow, and this is how I've always made money. Like whether it was up the coast or in different areas, is you watch the flow. And when you start to see market move, back then I could see it come from Double Bay, through to Bondi Junction, down to Randwick. And I could see it in Maroubra. And I know a lot of people work off square metre rates. I've always worked on, if it's 500 or 700, what you could actually spend with that money. Because if you're competing, that budget's that budget, and then they're looking, what can I actually buy? And I think too many people focus on square metres and it can affect it.
In terms of value of the property?
The value of the property.
Okay.
So I'm looking at the price point I want to land at. And if I've got that 700,000, or at the time it was 600, what could they spend? So I changed a townhouse development of 3 townhouses into 10 one-bedroom units. And we built them about 41, 42 square metres. And we're selling them between 500 and 600. And there was just a market where you couldn't get anything like that, and absolutely nailed the project. And then we were the first, like back then.
Also,
this was 09. So yeah. So, I think we paid about $1 million. By the time I got it approved, it was worth 2, which, that's doubling. That's pretty good. Got out of it really nicely. But we did all the little things, like I had a shipping container down there that I used as a display apartment. It didn't cost me much money, but, just not a display apartment. Didn't build a kitchen or anything, but just gave the thing. We did the outdoor showers. I used to give a name to this is funny. My development partner, who's worth a lot and very experienced, I used to come in with a board, and I'd come up with a name. I'd actually get my branding done.
Yeah, the branding and the marketing
first. Because what I used to say is that the architect, everything like that, we've got to go back to the seller. So we'd give it a personality early on before sometimes we'd even bought the site. And when you've got the buyer in mind, same with the strategy, that's where you can, add value and beat the market.
Okay, so you're almost crafting it before.
Crafting it all before.
And how do you, that particular site, is that Eastern Suburbs?
Oh, yeah, Maroubra, Fitzgerald Avenue, 189.
189, okay. I'll have to have a look at that.
End up doing the one next door, 189, 191. Yeah.
And what made you looking at that? So it sounds like it was DA proof of 3 townies.
Yeah.
What made you What made you change your mind and go, we're going to do one-bedroom apartments on it?
Well, the guys I was working for were doing that in South Maroubra, so in the Housing Commission area. So, I had a competitive advantage. I'd watch them, but they told me always, what could you actually do with a property? Like if I'm in America, no matter where I am, I'm always looking at a building. What could I do? The building's still for sale in Port Macquarie. It's been on the market for about a year. I still don't know what I'd do with that. But every time I drive past it, what would I put there? Like, could I put a car yard in there? Could I put a putt-putt golf centre? Like, could I put a nursery? So, they were always teaching me whether, every apartment, like where would you knock out a wall? Where could you create an extra bedroom? So it was always what extra.
Yeah.
And, if you ask me the secret sauce with development, it's how can you add value? If you buy just a site and it's approved for 10 or it could be approved for 10, you've got to add something that Bob can't. You've got to add your competitive advantage. And ours was working out from a real estate sales point, what's the maximum GR? I wasn't a builder, and then we'd work backwards.
Okay. So that's how you got it, because the 9 one-bedrooms.
The GR was higher, and then you got to work back through the construction. So that's how we'd work.
Okay, and always try to find that.
The maximum GR, and then work backwards.
Okay, what are some of the other projects and where have you invested and developed after that? Like, what are the next sort of steps? Is that was your initial development? It sounds like that was with equity partners or with
my brother-in-law actually.
Brother-in-law?
He put in the deposit.
Yeah.
I actually had a pizza shop, and it did really well. And I used the cash to then match his deposit and his money, and then we got the uplift. Then we did the next one together. Then he wanted his money back, and then I kept going.
Into what size projects?
The biggest,
still in the east at this time?
That was all in the east. So, we ended up doing about 15 projects in the east. Didn't build them all out. Sold some of them DA approved.
Yeah.
And, I found a partner that basically he had the money, would pretty much go 50-50. Generally, he'd put in the deposit. I'd come up with some money, and then I'd match him with mezz. Now what I realise is that he did really well. I could have done much better out of that.
Mezz would be chewing through, right?
But it was all right with the way the projects, because we always added value. So I think the best project we bought for about 5.5 in Marine Parade, and then we were valued over 10 by the time we started building.
What was it?
It was Marine Parade. It was a block with a T shape. No one could make it work. Everyone wanted to do a block at the front. And a small block at the back and a big block at the front. We end up running townhouses all the way down it. My architect still laughs. He's like, "You did that on a coaster." So even now, I've just done a supermarket up at Hat Head, and I had him try and do the 3-bedroom unit next door to it. No one could make it work. No one could get the natural light, and I just spend days in that place until I could work it out.
Yourself?
Yeah, I got a holiday house at Crescent Head. My partner laughs because she's like, "Can't you relax?" And same thing, I bought this thing it's built about 10 years ago, and I want to redo it. And she's like, why? And I'm like, the journey of trying to make the yield the best for this property or make it the most usable. It's a holiday house. I want to make it the most fun. I just love that. Like that's enjoyment, the challenge.
It's like the process rather than the
process. Because it's messy after that. The design's the best part, mate. The design is the best part. But my architect, Carl from MKD, still done all my projects, and it's always on a scribble bit of paper. And then I come up with something, and it looks like, something from what was I going to say? Something from Beautiful Mind. Okay. It's just a scribble, but he gets it, and then and then he turns it into something. Yeah.
Okay, so it's looking for opportunities that potentially, are you picking them up raw, or are you picking up DA-approved sites that you can see a bit of different potential in? Or
I think other than that one, I've always bought raw. Everything's been raw. We did a couple of DA. No, I thought I was going to say I bought a DA-approved development site. No, I didn't. No, everything after that's been raw.
Okay. And what's the trigger or the clause to move out of the east and move up the coast?
The east got to me just as much as anyone, so I didn't really feel like I fitted in. I enjoyed the party. I was a little bit lost. I've always enjoyed the water. My family are from up that way. I actually had a holiday house at Lake Macquarie, went to buy a little real estate business for cash flow. Mm-hmm. I thought, I got it wrong, but I thought the development market was going to stop. Sydney was going to stop for a bit.
Yeah.
So I wanted to get out, create a bit of cash flow. And I was lost. development's amazing. And I say there's nothing like it to make money, but you fight generally to buy it. You fight through the DA process. You can get on with your builder, but it's still a fight. Like, they never say thank you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Your buyer at the end of the day generally comes through and doesn't say thank you. The bank just gets their money back. So, yeah, you make $1 and you can be proud of it, but it can be pretty soul-destroying along the way. And what I really enjoyed is the people. So once I got up to the Mid-North Coast, had a team of 3 people. We're now a team of 240, and that gives me my joy. I still dabble in development to challenge, but the joy is the people development. And I think I was just lost, and I've found that thing now.
So you say that you bought the initial business up there for cash flow. Is that sales or was that management?
Yeah, but then I learned I couldn't create a cash flow business, mate. So I went up there, and
well,
even now, I went up there. I can grow a business. I can grow it. Like, even now, like, we laugh that sometimes, use credit card to pay wages, even with 240 people. Like, I can grow a business, and I can develop property, and I can do all that. Running a cash flow business is not as sexy or as enjoyable, because it generally means you're a little bit tight, you're a little bit more careful. There's not really more, not really. Growth is hard when you want to run a profitable business, or like a cash flow business. You can still run a profitable business, but in high growth mode means no cash. And I've been pretty much doing that for 10 years. Mate, I've spent every bit of profit before it comes in.
What are the key lessons and learnings? Because I know there's going to be young real estate agents, there's going to be young developers, people like myself. But that business and that growing part of it, what's the sweet spot to getting it to maybe not cash flow, but like profitable and sustainable? Probably is the right word.
I'm probably the wrong person to ask, because I push real hard. I've got 3 more rent rolls I'm exchanging on in the next 7 days. I've got the 10% deposit for those. Pretty much sure I got funding. At 70%, 20% gap in the middle. I'll exchange on those before I organise the 20%. I'm lucky I've got a good network. That 20% will probably come from somewhere. But I'm still running it that tight. However, we've got a very profitable business that runs really well. When I mentor people, I make sure people don't run the way I run. You know what I mean? Like, I can live with that. I think the sweet spot is to make sure you've got a backup plan. And as reckless as that might sound, there's 3-4 guys I can go to. So, it's not as crazy as I think it is, but I'm always pushing. But you can't get the growth I've had without pushing. And if you look at anyone that's made a lot of money, they're pushing hard. Like, you know what I mean? They're doubling up. Now, I don't do that, but I'm very aggressive in my growth. But is it worth it?
Yeah.
It is for the special cats or the weird cats of the world, yeah. Like, and I put myself there. For us, yeah. But to my dear friends and people I care about on my team, I say no. Like, if you're not made for it, if you're not already doing it, no. Like, have that balance and
that work-life balance.
And that's why we've got the business called Lifestyle. Like, people talk about 3x and 10x. I'm like, yeah, that's great, but why? Like, I got a big fuck you. You know what I mean? Like, because I didn't grow up in the East and different things like that, and I probably didn't fit the box, so I got a pretty good big fuck you, and that drives you pretty hard. That drives you pretty hard. So if you don't have, but that doesn't necessarily make you content, and like, someone like my dear friend Ollie Lavers that you talk about, clever boy, but there's no way I'd push him to do what I've done. So when I'm chatting to him, I'm like, how does he make sure that he's home with Rach? How does he make sure he's home with Barb? Like, how does he make sure that he's the best partner, for Gav too? Like, a lot of the times I'm like, mate, employee or director mode compared to partner mode. It's about getting that balance of all those areas of your life to be content. So I'm good at coaching it, just not great at the mirror.
Do as I say, not as I do.
Yeah, exactly, mate.
What are your key learnings with managing? You said 240 staff.
Yeah.
How do you keep a team or manage a team of that sort of size? It's obviously not you talking to 240 people a day, but
mate, I say you got to care. So if I was recruiting you tomorrow, the first thing I'd say is we're not perfect. We make mistakes, but I definitely care. And they'll look you straight in the eye and say, no matter what, I'll fix it. And we mean that. We mean that as a business, and our leadership team, 100%. Like, that's our culture. We're not perfect. We're vulnerable just as much as anyone else, but we care and fix it. And I reckon there's not a lot of businesses that actually say that. A lot of businesses are founder-led, ego-led, or profit-led. Our business definitely isn't that. I've made my money in other areas. I really enjoy the giving back. I think you have to ask yourself, would you work for you? And I say that a bit. But a lot of people leave someone to create something else, and they generally take that same ethos from their old boss and then just create it somewhere else. And then the other thing is, and I learned this off Jeff Jowett, is, what got you here won't get you there. And my biggest thing that I'm sharing at the moment is, I was really good with a smaller team. And you just said, like, I can't talk to 240 people a day. That kills me. I think you had a meal on. I just I just went and saw a meal this week, actually. Yeah. And what I love...
Shout out to Emil, what a bloke.
What a bloke. But what I loved is that where he's in his life, he's got a little less pressure than me. He's had a couple of wins. He was so present in that meeting with me. He was so inspiring in that meeting with me. And he made me feel like there was no clock. Like, I cut the meeting short. And I reckon he would have been there. He made me feel that he could have been there at 8 o'clock that night when I got there at 12.
Yeah, it was the same with us when we visited him.
Yeah. So that was a really good lesson for me, like how present am I, why I'm building this business, why I'm buying other businesses, why I've got all this other going on, to make sure that I can be in that energy that Emil had. And coming back to that secret sauce is like, in every meeting I'm at, like, what can I take away? Like, I'll take away something from being here today.
Yeah. What's the end goal though? If it's always accumulating and buying, and you said you're purchasing a couple of other rent rolls, and you're growing and growing and growing, is it just the game?
It's the game. 100% it's the game. But we've got a little bit, it's not as silly as that, because I've got a view that real estate businesses are going to get a lot smaller or a lot bigger. When we change from elders to lifestyle, I talked to a couple of groups, a couple of bigger groups want to get into our area. I'm on a bit of a market share play and a destination play. So we're from Foster to Brunswick Heads. There's about 4 locations we're not in that I want to be in. I'm trying to get that done by the end of the year.
Yep.
And then that's our market. And then it's just about then building dominance in that market share. Currently, we still at the moment sell more than any other brand. We're about 9.6% market share in that whole area.
Okay.
I would like, and our next best is 9.3. That's like, beating the other brands. And we haven't filled in the gaps. When we fill in the gaps, I'd like that, get that to 20. Not from an ego point of view. I just really want our team to do easier business. And if you've got 20 to 30% market share, it's just easier for your team to do business.
Okay. And is there correct, I don't know how, real estate and running these things works, but is it a sell-off? Is it just a maintenance? Is it like, you get into these markets? Your team start to build it, you have the market share. Is it just sustaining from there, or what's the...
I think, people talk about growth, and growth not necessarily more. So I know, even though it looks like I'm accumulating, it's more like the biggest thing I'm proud of is the leadership team. Like, I don't talk about number of managements or number of officers. I'm not flippant when people say how many it is. I say, I don't know. But what I'm most proud of really is the leadership team. Like, not many people get to grow a business with an amazing leadership team. So it's now, growth is not necessarily more, but you sort of need more officers to grow that, and then different challenges. And we're just quickly talking before we went on air about wealth creation. Like, it's crazy that we've got all these managements, but we don't look after them from wealth creation. So, I want to play with how officers look. There's all sorts of things. So it's not like I want, a massive, massive business for the sake of a massive business. Yeah. It's like my little playground. I get to, we own quite a few of the offices, and then we get to renovate the offices, and then, we want Lifestyle Collective off the back of our real estate group. So it's like a playground, and I think anyone that's mad for business and entrepreneurial mind, it's not about the more. If I wanted more, I'd be back in Sydney developing. Like, that's where I made the most money. This is now, how do I grow as I say there's nothing like personal development growth than being a leader of people, because every eye is on you and they are judging you every minute of the day. And if you want your business to improve, you have to improve. Yep. And that's a lot. And that comes, I have 2 different coaches a week, and personally.
What are the coaches for?
I had them at different coaches for different reasons. Jeffy Jowett's been around probably the longest. And at the moment, I've got more of a spiritual guy at the moment that I'm using from America, an amazing guy, big boy, but really gentle. And he just brings me back into my body. Yeah, it brings me back from all the madness and just brings me back, you know.
How do you balance that work life? Do you switch off? Do you not switch off? Do you run it short sprints? What's your optimization?
Look, I've just come back from Europe. I'm going to Europe. So I said, but no one feels sorry for me. Like, I have a really good life. But the whole time I'm over there, like, I can be on the bed 2:30 not to make up my missus working. But not because I have to, because I love it. Like if you said to me, I'm going to drop you at the beach for 3 days with a beach umbrella and take your mobile phone and you can't work, like, that would be hell for me. So everyone's got a different thing. Like, my mind, you know, like, just when I was waiting for you, I was Googling all sorts of different stuff, like ADHD, the mind, or whatever you want to call it. So, yeah, my mind never stops, but I enjoy it. And I'm really passionate on this because I used to think there was something wrong with me, or people make out you're greedy.
Developers, fuck, it's the go-to headline.
And all that crap. But, like, a mate of mine's a really good boxing coach, amazing. He's Hungarian middleweight champion, and he's been a boxing coach of mine, and he's a classic, and he's 60-odd. He's like, David, you know, skip, drink red wine, blah, you know, live life. All right? But I said to him, you know what? What I'm doing now, if that was for the Olympics, you'd say, well done. So what's the difference? When someone's passionate enough to go in sport to the Olympics, that's pretty selfish, yeah? They're pretty self-centered in what they want to do. That's all their world is, and they love it. And everyone's like, yeah, what's wrong with just loving business like that?
Yeah, it's true.
There's nothing wrong. Like, it's a deep passion. You put me anywhere in the world, the first thing I'm doing is I'm on their real estate pages. Just because it makes me curious. Or I love hospitality. So, you know, we always laugh with my EA. If everyone ever looked at the photos, because like 1 minute I'm like, there's a cushion. Can you see if you can source these for me? Next minute it's a bit of wallpaper. The next minute it's like a dish to, you know, I got a fish and chip shop. It's like, there's a dish for the fish. Like, that's just how my mind thinks. Like, I'm in this podcast. We're building one in our Port Macquarie office at the moment. I'm like, the first thing I did was, wow, okay, cool. Yeah. We just painted the wall. Maybe we should felt like I'm always thinking, what else? It's just...
One thing I want to touch on that you did briefly mention before we started talking, and then just then, is what I think's really like hands off to you and really incredible is that I know a lot of people, like developers and investors alike, you know, obviously have one way of doing things that works really well for them and stick with it. So that might be small scale, it might be you know, types of resi developments. It could be like someone that just does like buy, hold, sell, or buy, build, sell. But you've got assets, you've got supermarkets, you've got all that kind of stuff. I want to dig into a little bit about what you have, complexities around each, and sort of like why you have them and what you've found to be, you know, the good and bad parts of each.
Yeah, so I wanted to sharpen my skills. So I did real estate, and I remember like years ago, had a goal back then when it was a lot to write 100 a month. I did it, and I was like, what else? And then auctioneering, and then I still auction, but properly, professionally. And then once I got to a level, it was like, you know, what else? And then developing, you know, I did that part, and I enjoyed the design process more than the construction process. I'm not a construction guy, and I found that process a bit frustrating because I couldn't really add a lot of value to it. But I think I add value from design and obviously the sales point. So from then now, it's just always, you know, looking to push myself into different areas. So, I haven't developed industrial, but I've bought industrial. I have done townhouses. I just did a land subdivision. I did up the Med Motel at Crescent Head, which is, you know, that was a real fun project. I bought a caravan site in Port Macquarie, which was completely empty on the river, and we've just turned that into Camp Jordans. And then Hat Head, I've just done the General, which was an ex-service station site.
So it's just
It's the game. It's the game of what can you actually create? It's not the money. Like, you know, I got this crazy amount of money frauded from me, and I didn't even get upset. It obviously you got to make money to know you're good at what you're doing. You know, and you're not going to do anything to lose money. And look, making money is enjoyable, and it gives you the things you want. But big scale development will make you more money than anything. And occasionally, you know, I get envious. Like, I'm watching Grayer. Like, mate, like, those guys are freaks. And I had the idea of building a brand with Ideal Property, and we did, you know, those projects in the East. And I jumped off, you know, you look at Gurner, And I'm nowhere near those two guys in the world, but I look at envious at times. I'm like, oh, maybe what if I didn't leave Sydney? What if? I'm like, no, mate, that's not you. Like, you actually like buying these weird little buildings and doing weird little things, and you love turning, a 2-bedroom unit into a 3-bedroom unit. Like, you are who you are.
Okay.
And I'll give the example. I had my pizza shop and Arthur's Pizza at Randwick.
Arthur's Pizza, yeah.
And I wanted to have
I know Arthur's Pizza at Randwick.
Yeah, so I had that. And I wanted to turn that into the best pizza shop in the world. And then I realised it's not. It's just a good, honest pizza. And I never felt richer than when I had that pizza shop. You know what I mean? Yeah. And it's a
pizza shop making good money?
I was making 10 grand a week cash. Crazy.
Profit?
Cash. Yeah, crazy.
Wow.
Crazy. And like, it's funny. You can have whatever assets, but when you got 30 grand at home, yeah, that's a funny story. My ex was checks. Like, what did David do there? He'd come in Friday, he'd drink, come and grab the till, grab the money and go. But that was a crazy business. I mean, look, it's changed. That was quite a few, it's like 15 years ago now. But it was a cracking business. And when I had it, it was 70, 80% cash. I know the guy who owns it now. It's like 10 or 20% cash. It's crazy, obviously, with how the world's turned.
What about what are your thoughts on, as you said before, but I mean, I'll include it on air, but I remember speaking to Mark Rolton a while ago, and he was big on the land leasing of like the caravan parks, because I know he did a couple of those deals. You said that you had bought
caravan park, yeah. So I just redeveloped it into more like a leisure park. So I bought those silver caravans from America. So we got 2 of those.
Airstream or whatever.
I got 2 of those there.
Yeah.
We got 3 shipping containers now. We got tents. So I turned into that.
Yeah.
As much as I do different things, but I still like childcare. Lots of people try to get me into it. I didn't understand it.
Really?
Yeah.
Should that be bread and butter though?
Yeah, probably. It just didn't so I've stayed away from it.
Okay.
Obviously, sort of retirement, I stayed away from that. I did do boarding houses. I did get a couple of those DA approved. But I stayed to what I knew, and I had a hospitality background and a sales real estate background. So, as much as what I do, people say you're not as crazy as you think, Dave, because I stick to what I know. And I think you're talking about those caravans where you can sort of put relocatable homes and things like that.
Yeah, all those sorts of sites.
Yeah, mate, that business model is insane, but I still don't...
Insane in what way? Cash flow?
Well, basically, you make development profit, and then you get to hold the land and rent it out. So it's one of those assets that gives you cash flow and development profit. So I understand the concept.
Where's the uplift come, though?
From the construction.
Oh, if you actually build...
Well, they build the houses, so they make all the development profit there. And then they make the uplift because all of a sudden they're getting the rent, so their assets gone up. So it's a no-brainer. But once again, I didn't really know it. And 2, it took a lot of cash. I've never had cash because I'm always into the next deal. So they're pretty cash heavy. Same with storage sheds.
You done any of those?
No, same thing. Awesome, but they're cash heavy. And because I'm always into the next deal, I'm never high on cash.
Okay. Because why? You just love the game, you love rolling in. I'm fascinated by, a lot of, I know these people in this industry, they stay with one thing, they make it, they build it up, and momentum. And as I was saying to you, is that that's my goal, is to, you start obviously small, even Trigger Buff Harry started super small, you roll into the next, to the next, to the next.
I think to go bigger in developing, if you don't really have that construction down pat, and I had a couple of scary moments with construction that probably scared me off a little bit. And, I remember that development partner I spoke about. When I first met him, he had money and didn't want to lose it because his dad was giving him a chance. I had no money and I was ball tearing, ready to go. And then once I'd made $1, I then didn't want to lose it. So what I play with now is very safe. And then now he's proven himself and he's ready to go. So it just depends where you're at. I'm happy to have 6, 7 little projects on the go, but I don't know if I'd do one big project and go all in anymore.
Okay, just because where you're at and the
just where I'm at, yeah. And
do you think if people are starting out or people are younger, we've got an audience, a lot of them are probably 20s and 30s. What's your advice to them, because obviously now I feel like you've got a asset base of businesses and property portfolio. Is it to start that first and then work on the development, or How do you see that playing into it?
Whenever I meet anyone young, it's twofold. It's either dream bigger or dream smaller. I know that sounds weird, but I meet a lot of people that can't. They're not in the right spot. They're either sitting there and they're making $100,000 a year, and they want to buy the $5 million house, or the person that's lucky enough that they might have some family backing but not ready to go. So the first thing is to have a really good look in the mirror and see where you're at, and then work out where you want to be. Pretty simple, and make a plan and move backwards. So that's the biggest thing, is where are you at, and then goals need to align with that. But I think, as I do different things, it's like, if I'm building my real estate business and I'm doing the best out of that, if I'm building my own property portfolio, if I'm developing something, if I'm renovating something, if I'm working on my own, if I'm working on all those different things, I'm just moving that chessboard more and more forward. So my advice would be, get a property and build an asset base first. Unless you're really, really gifted, I say to any younger friends, like, I've got a mate at the moment and he's like, I want to buy a townhouse. I'm like, you just bought one house, you've done really well out of it. Let's buy another house and add value here. Let's just build that base a little bit bigger. And then let's go and do the development. Because I know his risk profile and I know what he can live with and what he can sleep with at night. He's not the type of guy that would sell that house now, put all in a townhouse and go all in, because he wouldn't then be able to write the $500,000 he does in real estate.
Yeah, okay.
So who are you as an individual? What's your risk appetite? And I can sleep at night with everything I do. So it's like, where are you at? Some people can, some people can't. But you got to have that honest chat with yourself.
You mentioned before as well, you had a business partner or a deal that you got fleeced of heaps of money. What are the main lessons, or what's the story around that?
Oh, that was just frauded. I was like back before banks, and they went into my solicitor. I was buying a unit with cash. Didn't have time to get finance for it. I was transferring $675,000, and it was before anyone knew about that, and checking account. And then we're busy running, growing the business. Said to my GM at the time, can you transfer this money? Pop, pop. And they changed accounts with my solicitor. But the biggest lesson in that is that unit wouldn't have changed my life.
Okay. $675,000.
Done, yeah. And you know what? Like, I'm a pretty passionate dude. I can get upset with like so much of small things. It didn't even change my heart rate. And I don't say that to be proud or arrogant about it. Yeah. It was just a really good lesson that it really, really proved. Because you say you're not doing it for money, but when money actually, it was like, well, it just would have been a unit. And I'm not saying that flippant, but it was a really good lesson, And this, another really good lesson is I bought a one at South Maroubra and made $1 million. It was the only time I hadn't spent the money because I wasn't expecting it. I bought it, and then there's this wild Asian investor that turned up, and a mate said, would you sell it? And I was like, if I get that, I'll sell it. Yeah. Not thinking, and he sold it. And the same thing, like, I love a party, and that night I went home like sad because you think you're doing it to make money, and then you get it. So I'd say to anyone young, like, really work out why your goals are so important to you and what they really mean to you. And when you own them here, nothing will stop you. But if you're not aligned with them, or if it's from ego, things will get in the way.
How do you know if it's from ego?
I think for ego, that's a good question.
I've heard you talk a bit about this.
It's a really good question.
Real estate agents too, man.
Yeah, it's a really good question. Who are you doing it for? And could you do it and no one know and still want to do it?
Yeah, okay.
Like a lot of really wealthy people have a really luxury car, but no one knows they've got it. They just really want that car. And I don't think there's anything wrong. Like, if you really want a nice car and you want to drive double bay and get people to see it, and you can own that, like, there's nothing wrong with that either.
Yeah.
But know why you want it. And in times in life, I wanted to do things because I wanted to be seen.
Yeah, okay.
And other times I do it because I really, really want it. So,
Eastern suburbs is fraught with, I think, a lot of that and the flashy lifestyle. Talk to me a little bit about development and being able to sort of scale, grow. What's the strategy around? Are you always recycling? Like, and I'm maybe being a little bit selfish here about asking, but I'm curious because I see you as probably further down the line as to where I'm at. But like, is it always just going to be, recycling everything back into the next project, or like picking some out, going into assets, or what's your sort of strategy? Or what have you found works best in that sort of in that area, especially with development? Because why I like it, and I've spoken to a lot of people about it, is that, as you know, it's that large chunk of cash, that capital that you can make 12 to 18 months. A lot of our audience is property investors. I say, like you always need to start with your base. But it's like, if I'm doing a development, I'm making anywhere between 500 grand to 1 or 1.5 mil. For me to make that out of a property portfolio, I've either got to sell that down, or, my property, the value of my property needs to be insane to be able to bring that out. So that's why I really love development, is that quick. Obviously, it's high skilled. It's a lot at stake. But what do you think are the best strategies to keep that ball rolling and to roll into deals and everything around that?
So I flew down from Port today, and the sick bag in a plane.
Yeah.
There's not a plane trip that I haven't got that sick bag out with a bit of paper, pen, and scribbled exactly what you questioned. Should I keep it? Should I sell it? Should I do this?
Really?
I don't think that ever stops. So I think you've always got to be asking that question, what to do with it. Because that's a really good investor and developer with both. So I'll answer it in a couple of ways. One, to make a lot of money out of real estate, you need to add value or learn to add value, no matter who you are. If you just go onto realestate.com and buy a development site, DA approved, you aren't going to make a lot of money. You need to add value somewhere there. Add value. Secondly, if you want to make a lot of money, you need other people's money. All right? We've all got a base. No matter what your base is, if you can get someone else's money, you can get there quicker. So they're the first two things. I think the next thing is, and I talked about the envy, is I made a bit of money off development, and then I took money and put money into assets, and I put money into business.
Yep.
That slowed me up. People were doing it around my time 15 years ago. Yep. They're now... So occasionally I'm like, oh, like they've gone to... Because a billionaire doubles up. All right? A wealthy person doubles up, takes a bit off the table. Doubles up, takes a bit off the table. So as much as I might look as a risk taker, me personally, once I had a couple of opportunities of nearly losing everything on my way, you decide you just don't want that. So I took money off the table. But then you got to realise you're not going to be a Gurner or you're not going to be a Grayer. Like, there are a cost to that, but you got to be comfortable with it. So you got to look at how far you want to go. If you want to go to the really, really wealthy, you got to keep. You can't recycle. You've got to recycle only. Yep. But if you want to be wealthy and live a good life, to me, the smart ones that have been around longer take some money off the table.
Yeah.
And also now I look at my portfolio. What if it goes up 5% every year? What, as a developer, I'd have to be doing? Because a developer, you're only as good as your last deal and another deal. Where once you build up a portfolio at a reasonable level and it's going up 5% a year, and it gets to a point where you can't spend it, well, that's pretty good too.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Because
so that's why that scribble bit of paper doesn't stop. And mate, that's like, if you look at a bank, that's what they're doing. They're looking at their balance sheet all the time. Banks change direction all the time. And I don't see this arrogantly, but if you can see yourself like a mini bank, where's my best time? What am I doing to create cash flow? Where am I doing my assets? What am I doing over here? And I consider myself humbly like a little Dave Inc. And where's all that money going? Yeah. And there's going to be different times in your life. Like, if you have a partner, have a baby, maybe that's not the time to do your biggest development.
It's true.
And there's times that you can go harder later.
Yeah.
And also cycles make everyone, like you see at the moment, I'm on socials a lot. You watch everyone in Queensland, like they're absolutely high-fiving.
Gold Coast is crazy.
But they've come from nowhere the last 5 years. Okay, guys, like you've done well, but you're not all heroes. Like you've ridden a really good market.
Yeah.
Now, we saw that in Sydney maybe 10 years ago. And then Melbourne had that, obviously Melbourne. So cycles can make you a hero. So I think you want to be in the market for that cycle. And that's why I would say get in there. And that's why I reckon you need your asset base, because your asset base makes you a hero when the cycle goes.
As well as some developments too.
Yeah.
What's your thoughts on, because I've had people approach me and all the time, but around equity partners and finding the right people? Because obviously with this, you say you've worked with a couple of people, some worked out, some haven't. But what have been your main findings with bringing in equity partners on board? Because, there's people that have a lot of money and not a lot of skills, and a lot of money and want to get a little bit involved. How have you seen that sort of work out for you?
So many lessons in that.
Yeah,
so many
that was probably a bit of a selfish question.
Yeah.
But I've been toying with the...
So the first thing is I came from very humble. So the idea of someone lending me a couple $1 million, I couldn't, that I thought I was lucky. So the deals I gave them were way better than I should have because I felt so blessed to get that money. I wish I had a bit of arrogance to realize that I was the deal maker. So first of all is actually learn what the structure should look like. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Because there are different types of structures. So I'd actually go around to different people, developers, and find out, if they bring in the cash, what does that look like? If I bring in the deal, what does that look like? If I've got this skill set, what does that look like? But also I've seen a lot of people overcook it. Like real estate agents, they've got a site to sell and they're like, I'll sell it to you if I get X. It's like, wait a second, mate, you're the real estate agent. You offer me nothing. So you need to have a really good idea of what it offers. So 1, learn what that deal is. 2, really understand your skill set and where you're at. One thing about money, sometimes when people have got money, and it depends where they've got it from. I find if they've got it quick, sometimes they feel they can own you in a deal. So because they're the money. So where it really worked well is I had a partner with plenty of money, but they were very good on the engineering and the construction side and the documentation. And I was very good on the sales, the flair, the design, the marketing. It was a really match in heaven. So, yeah, I think no matter what, it is a partnership and you all got to bring something. Just money is fine, but then it's got to be really demonstrated. It's money, and then you don't really want to sit them around the table designing whether you're going to do 2-bedroom or 3-bedroom units. Because if it's just money with no skill, it can be a real pain in the ass.
Okay, because you don't want to wait.
What have they got to like? So they've got the money. They think they've got to say, but say in what? Yeah. They might have made money in IT, or they might have made money in another business, and all of a sudden, because they're the cash partner, they're adding value where they think they're adding value where they don't, or they think they've got you on the hook because they've got the money, and that was my lesson. Yeah.
Okay.
The most powerful person in the room is the person that can find the deal.
Yeah, that's 100%. That's my issue is that when I was looking for my sites, letterbox shop and agent relationships and all that kind of stuff, and then bought what I could and build out that development pipeline. But then the calls kept coming and the agents still had the deals. And I'm like, well, I'm in an interesting situation here where it's like, is it scale with other people's money, similar to the bank, give them the return, do it myself, control the entire operation. So it's just, I was interested to get your...
And the reason why I originally called my first business Ideal Property is because, I think, one, there's an ideal way to do it, but there's ideal for everyone. So, we're lucky enough with socials now that you can watch Gray or Gurn or all these other really cool developers or Emil and just watch their journey. But just be careful because it depends where they're at. And I say really successful and really smart people can still give you crap advice because they're at a different part of the journey.
Yeah, true.
I'll never forget I wanted to buy this site. I should have bought it. And I should have bought it.
Everyone's got a site.
I really should have bought it. But anyway, I said to a mate, I'm going to buy it because my business partner said, yeah, we'll buy it. He said to me, yeah. And the market was a bit iffy. It went, but it looked, everything said it should have gone backwards or sideways or backwards. And
what suburb are we talking?
It was Coogee. Oof. And anyway, he said to me, but David, Arthur, but David, if the market fails, you're going to open your boss and you've got a couple of IOUs, but that's not going to pay for it. Your business partner can write a check.
Yeah. So
you're coming from different angles. So just because he thinks it's smart, depending where you're at, it might not be. What's your backup plan? So, and Ollie I spend a lot of time with and he speaks to other mentors. I'm like, you got to take their ego, not in a bad way, but their ego, their situation and where they come from because good advice is still good advice, but where are they coming from in their own circumstance?
That's true. And I guess it's the same with people's parents, right?
Yeah.
Is that they want the best for you, but from them, kind of not the best for...
Well, the guys at work hate when I say this, but no parent wants you to be outstanding, and they're like, why? Because outstanding hurts. Parents want to love you. They want you happy. My mum and dad do not care what business or what I do. Hello, mate. How are you? You good? Yeah, Dad. No, but you good? Yeah, I'm good. So if you want to be a number one or you want to go somewhere far in life, like most parents are going to try and cuddle you. That's their job, to love you. You got to push beyond that.
It's true. It's true.
And then that's not an attack of parents. It's
No.
their job.
I totally agree.
Their job to protect you.
And but even their advice obviously comes from a good place, but it is the context of their life and their experiences that they're portraying on you.
And the world changes. The news agents used to be a great business. A video shop was around once upon a time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So the world does change. So someone that made money 20 years ago, like I made all my money down in South Maroubra, Coogee. I'm not going back there. One, I don't sell down there anymore. I don't auction down there anymore. I don't know that market anymore. Could I make money? Probably yes. I don't know it. I've lost my competitive advantage. Where am I? I'm sniffing around where I am. Yeah. I play in those markets where I've got an advantage. Like if you come up to my neighbourhood, I already know about it. Or I'm pretty close to it. Yeah. I already know what's just been sold or what's going on. Play where you've got that advantage.
Play where you got that advantage. You understand the local area.
Yeah. I've always been admired by developers that actually can go into lots of different regions. I think, good play to them. I've always played where I know.
Yeah, I agree. You got to know your patch, right? Establish that patch, learn everything inside our council, agents. Like it takes a lot to, I think, get established. You need to be learning what's selling, what's coming up, what's in the pipeline, who's doing what numbers, who are the main players, who are the main developers, who are the main builders. It takes a lot to sort of establish in that market. So,
one street could be the difference of $500,000 on the GR. Like
I
plus.
see it all the time.
Yeah,
I see it all the time. The way we usually wrap these up, David, and I probably could chat to you a few hours online or offline, especially around development. But I usually ask for a quote you live your life by, and then also one sort of golden nugget of advice. So that advice, I'd ask if you can shape it at probably property investors or property developers earlier on is probably our audience, investors and maybe some agents and stuff in there. But is there one sort of bit of advice you can leave everyone with from there? They listen to a podcast with David Gray, and one really good bit of advice that he had for it was X.
It's a bit of a theory. What I always say, like for everyone, you can only ever say you've got up to Everest if you actually climb Everest. And I think for most of us, we get to 80 or 90% and we think we're nearly there. But you can't say you climbed it until you've actually got there. And I find a lot of people, want to give up at different times, or they don't make their 20 calls, or they don't make their 50 calls, or maybe, they think they want to find a development site, but they don't go and door knock. And I always say, if I gave you $1 million, would you do it today?
Yeah.
And they go, of course I would. I go, well, just fucking do it. Because you can. Just do it. Just do it.
Yeah, people find a reason to
just do it. Because if you do that constantly, you'll make the $1 million.
Easy, especially in development.
For sure.
Yeah. All right. Well, look, David Gray, appreciate your time, and I'm keen to continue to follow the journey.